It is my great pleasure to welcome you all this evening. Our programs focus on the field of depth psychology, which was pioneered by Carl Jung and continues to be developed by contemporary men and women. We look to the work of Jung and others to better understand our own lives as well as our current social, political, and environmental challenges. Toward this end, the board is planning ahead for fall offerings that resonate with the upcoming election and will be anchored by the new book, Revisioning the American Psyche, to which both Ed Tick and Andrew Grant have contributed chapters. Next month, on April 5th, we will delve into ancient Egyptian teachings to discover what present-day wisdom is found there. In May, we will look at psychological aspects of the environmental crisis as we courageously consider extinction anxiety. After the program this evening, Elric Walker will be our host for just 10 or 15 minutes of ongoing conversation for whoever would like to stay afterward. Now, for tonight's presentation, I am very happy to introduce Terry Ebinger, who has enriched my own experience of film through her courses at Cinema and Psyche. Cinema and Psyche is a place to find movies that matter, presented in a way that matters. I encourage you to check it out online and attend one of her wonderful interactive programs. Besides being a passionate film scholar, Terry has nearly 4 decades of experience as a depth psychological practitioner, educator, dream consultant, spiritual director, and multidisciplinary group leader. Her Cinema and Psyche programs synthesize psychology, myth, film history, cultural anthropology, and the symbolic language of film imagery. She teaches for several Jung centers around the country and at many places closer to home in the Bay Area.
Go and change it.
Terry, we are ready for you on screen.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here. I love this work, and it's going to be fun to see where we go today. It's a rainy, stormy day in Sonoma County. I think we need to make sure that everyone is muted, except me. So it's a rainy, stormy day in Sonoma County, and we're blessed by the rain, and the wild plums are in bloom. So spring is really here. And let's just go ahead and I'll start by sharing my screen. I have learned the hard way that in order to prevent lagging when we record these film clips in these Zoom recordings, I've learned there's a workaround that I have to do. It's not quite as smooth as it might be, but it works. The world, let me get my image. I'm just remembering all the steps I need to take here. Here we go. The world is desperately in need of elders now. Elders, one of the great qualities of elders is the capacity to hold paradox and to begin the process, to work with the process of unifying opposites. And as we all know, we're in a very different place than that right now. What we don't need is more uninitiated olders. We need initiated elders. And when elders work together with the ideals, the visions, and the dreams and enthusiasms of youth, they each fuel the genius and the purpose in the other. I've been teaching and thinking about elders in film for a long time. And it's an always evolving process. Let me go ahead and start this just for the background. Roger Ebert said that movies are the most powerful empathy machine in all of the arts. And isn't that true? I just find that working with film to teach psychology and to teach dream and to teach all these wonderful concepts that we've all worked so hard to integrate in our lives. I just love using film as a medium for that because it really brings the archetypes to life and makes them move on screen. You'll see at the bottom of the screen all the information you need to contact me if you want to be on my mailing list, or if you want to come to my free offering next Thursday on the wonderful story of Henry Sugar, which is nominated for Best Live Action Short, and it's actually favored to win, Wes Anderson. So that's going to be free next Thursday, and you can go to my website, you'll find out more. Okay, let's go to the next one. I have to keep remembering the process here in the beginning. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop that and just talk for a moment about the elder as wisdom pilgrim. One of the things I noticed from watching many and paying attention to many films about elders, our elders on the way to becoming elders, is how many of them are road trips. I have a whole long list of road trip movies involving elders. And there's something about road trips that is very archetypal. It puts the two opposites into a vessel, it puts the lid on the vessel, and then the alchemical process begins. So I love this concept of the elder as a wisdom pilgrim. Starting with the call, like all great adventures, like all initiatory experiences, they along the way in these pilgrimages, whether they're external or whether they're internal, there's going to be a life review, a very important part of becoming a wise elder, becoming an elder, not just being an older. The lost self comes to call along the way. We all know this. We run up against the parts of us that were left behind. Important strangers, when it's a pilgrimage, and certainly in every movie I can think of that's a great movie, we're going to run into important strangers, we're going to find allies, and we're going to have encounters with shadow. There's going to be, in one of these pilgrimage stories, moments of reflection, moments of reckoning, and often one of the things I find in films about wise elderhood is there's a purpose of atonement and forgiveness that occurs. They're initiatory stories, and in every initiation, we leave the ordinary world behind, we go into the underworld, and then we come out with some kind of reunion, interior or exterior. So this approach to the unknown that happens, and again, think of a road trip, approach to the unknown, a descent and a rememberment, whether it's an inner or outer journey. A return, again, from watching and paying attention to many films about elders, and especially with road trip movies, almost always three things happen on the return. Return with hearts opened. They don't need to think more, they need to feel more. A return with more wisdom, having learned from the experience, and a return with having made peace, often having made peace with death. The Straight Story. This might be my very favorite of all the elder movies. I'm going to be doing a series starting in May on the wise elder in film, where we actually go deep into one film every couple weeks. And this is going to be one of those on that journey. The Call in the Night. How often in films, the call, what Joseph Campbell referred to as the beginning of the hero's journey or the heroine's journey, how often in movies it's literally a phone call. So that's what happens in this clip. This is David Lynch's movie, made by Disney, a G-rated David Lynch movie. It's just superb. And he's playing with certain tropes. He's using them to great effect, but he's also playfully playing with them. So one of the tropes he plays with is how the gods in movies speak in lightning and thunder. So there's a moment in this film where the thunder just rolls to punctuate what's just been heard. There's a quality in this film about it before it's too late. One of the things we all know, we're all feeling before it's too late. And he's heartstruck and humbled. So notice as this clip goes along, and it's going to be kind of loud because we need to hear that a phone call happens. We need to hear that she's in another room and kind of hear what she's saying. And then as that's happening, the camera slowly pushing in on his face, this brilliant Academy Award nominated performance. And watch how he plays it when he hears that it's someone on the phone calling to talk about someone who's gravely ill. Here we go.
I love a lightning storm.
Me too, Dad. That was Bobby. Uncle Al had a stroke. Dad?
So the shadows of the rain moving across his face are a great stand-in for the tears he has not yet shed. This happens in films a lot, that rain is representative of grief. So let's go to the next slide. I have 3 different slides, each with 3 of the archetypes that I've chosen of the many, many numbers of archetypes that really show up in film about elders. And a quote from William Blake: "Wisdom combines insight with experience and vision with maturity. If maturity expands vision, it will lead to wisdom. If not, maturity becomes degeneration." So we're going to look at a couple more clips having to do with pilgrimage stories and a couple about dreaming. It's impossible to do this in a linear fashion because all of these archetypes that we're going to zoom in on happen simultaneously in many of these movies. So the archetype of the dreamer, because the dreams begin everything, and they certainly create wake-up calls. So the wake-up call, the nightmares that also in our next image, in our next clip, are going to happen that get us out the door, the visitations from ancestors, from others, the shadow encounters that come in the dreams. Dreams are, of course, the mythic part of our nature, guiding us, showing us the deeper story. Intuition and instinct, of course, and dreams are a bridge to the other world. Pilgrim, the call, the road trip, the life review, coming in contact, coming up against the lost self. Important strangers, constant in great movies, initiatory descent, and a return with wisdom. And then the healer, the healer, the part of us that is about our love nature, the part of us that is about grief and loss, atonement and forgiveness. You see this again and again in the great elder films. Rememberment, calling back home the lost parts of our nature. The wounded healer, the healer that has done the work. We all come from the Scar clan, as Pincola Estes would tell us. We're all wounded, but those who've done the work become the wounded healers. The fair witness that comes from becoming wise, and gratitude practice. Okay, let's go over here. This is the what I think of as the granddaddy of all dream movies. Ingmar Bergman made this when he was only, oh gosh, was he 57? I think he was 57. He was young when he made this. And he used this very famous, very beloved, very elderly Swedish actor as his protagonist. And here we have a quote from Bergman. His movies are full of dreams, of course, and dream language. Film as dream, film as music. No form of art goes beyond ordinary consciousness as film does, straight to our emotions, deep into the twilight room of the soul. Okay, I love that quote. This is an initial dream. I'm always, when I teach, using clips from the very beginning or the very end of the movie, because they hold, just like in waking life, just like in dream life, they hold a precis, they hold a concentrated form of what's to come. So this is an initial dream. It tells us what the movie's going to be about. Dreaming as preparation for death, the nightmare as a wake-up call, Chronos and time being terrifying, and birth and death united. So pay attention to the sound design. This is our longest clip. It's about 4 minutes long, and that's already edited from the length of the original dream in the movie. The dream comes very early in the movie. The sound design is fantastic. And you can see it's overexposed on purpose to make it seem otherworldly. And notice as it goes on, how there's a sound design that almost sounds like a baby crying that's also correlated or associated to images of death. So that's an interesting part of it. Let's watch this. we can see there in the final close up on his face that he's paying attention, that he's had an awakening, and it determines a change in plan for him in the story, where he decides to go to the event where he's going to be honored as a scholar. He decides to go on a road trip and go with his daughter-in-law, with whom he has a lot of tension. But there's a reconciliation that happens in that. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. And it will also be in my series when we get to that. Okay. Let's look at the next one. Just a few of the images there to point out, which I'm sure many of you saw, that that sense of isolation, of being alone. This is one of his issues. The shadow, the encounter with shadow, the part of him that's near death that he hasn't been willing to deal with. The Phantom Carriage, that's an actual silent movie that this particular actor was famous for, and how there's like the squealing noise of the carriage reminds me of a baby being born, and when the coffin falls out of the carriage, it's as if there's a birth going on. So there's so much in these dream images that's really brilliantly done. Okay, let's look at another dream. Whoops, wait a minute. Go back here. Let's look at another dream movie. This is about an interior pilgrimage. Come back, little Sheba. What we exile turns hostile. That's a fairy tale rule. What we resist persists, says Jung. And Jung also said the psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. When the individual does not become conscious of her or his inner contradictions, the world must act this out for us and be torn into opposite halves. So come back, little Sheba. We have dreams of lost youth. We have Sheba as a self-object. We have the unlived life coming to call. We have the shadow work coming right through the dream, and unprocessed grief is going to be an important part of this story. I love this movie. I saw it so many times growing up, and now I understand so many deeper meanings of this film. This is an Academy Award winning performance by Shirley Booth, also won the Tony when she did it on stage, and also won Golden Globe. Just brilliant performance.
I dreamt about little Sheba again last night, Doc.
You did?
Yeah. It was just as real. I put her on a leash to take her downtown to do some shopping. And everybody on the street turned around to look at her. And I was so proud. And then we started to walk. And the block started going by so fast, poor little Sheba couldn't keep up with me. And suddenly I looked around and she was gone. Ain't that funny? I looked everywhere for her, but I couldn't find her. I stood there feeling kind of afraid. Do you suppose that means anything, Doc? Daddy? Are you asleep?
Dreams are funny.
Do you suppose it means little Sheba's gonna come back?
I don't know, baby.
I miss her so. She was such a cute little puppy. Wasn't she cute?
Yeah, she was cute.
Remember how white and fluffy she used to be after I gave her a bath? And how her little hind end used to wag from side to side when she walked?
I remember.
I just hated to see her grow old, didn't you, Daddy?
Little Sheba should have stayed young forever. Some things should never grow old. That's what it amounts to, I guess.
So what an incredible array of images in this dream about lost youth, and also this incredible paradox that comes with age about grieving the dreams of youth that will not get lived out and the willingness to let them go. So there's Come Back, Little Sheba. Okay, let's go to another of the great pilgrimage movies. Again, I love this one. It will be in my series. Alexander Payne has made The Holdovers, which is nominated for Best Picture this year. I can't wait to teach that at Christmas time. It's going to be happening. And this is my favorite movie of his. It's called About Schmidt. And Phil Kuzno, one of my favorite teachers, says that, and his book, The Art of Pilgrimage, is brilliant, highly recommended. In each of us dwells a pilgrim. It's the part of us that longs to have direct contact with the sacred. The real pilgrimage begins when everything falls apart. So he's already been through a number of little mini ordeals where, boy, talk about encounters with shadow and things, plans falling apart and being humbled. And ancestral forgiveness ritual we're about to see, with his newly departed wife, and self-forgiveness is part of that. And we're going to hear a voiceover of him talking to Ndugu, which is an African child who he has adopted from watching a commercial on TV. And these letters to Ndugu, which happen frequently, and we hear him in voiceover, they really form a container for self-reflection. And we get to hear what's going on. This is one of my very favorite all-time performances by Jack Nicholson. Here we go.
Helen? What did you really think of me? Deep in your heart. Was I really the man you wanted to be with? Was I? Or were you disappointed and too nice to show it? I forgive you for Ray. I forgive you. It was a long time ago, and I know I wasn't always the king of kings. I let you down. I'm sorry, Helen. Can you forgive me? Can you forgive me? And so, Ndugu, I must say it's been a very rewarding trip. And this morning, I awoke from my night in the wilderness completely transformed.
Okay, let me get my image up here. Yeah, well, of course, he's not completely transformed. It's just the beginning of a transformation. And I love how in the beginning we have this wonderful little montage where he's sitting by the river. Finally, he stops. Finally, he slows down. Finally, he's alone so that he can have a deeper experience of that beautiful, spontaneous forgiveness ritual. And true to Alexander Payne's wonderful humanity, it's all done with a great wry sense of humor. Okay, back to another pilgrimage story from the straight story again. This is the one about the guy that takes his lawnmower across several states to visit his brother, who's had a stroke. And along the way, it's all about before it's too late for him. And it's a penitent pilgrimage. There are lots of trials. Just the way the whole thing unfolds, it always struck me as being about him making penance and making atonement so that he can forgive himself and hope for forgiveness from his brother. How vulnerability is strength, vulnerability, and we see it in movies again and again, and we've got to own it as elders. It's a superpower when we own it, and what a thing to model in this heroic culture, how humility is humus. So when we are humiliated, says David White, we are returned to the ground of our own being, and along the way, Alvin Straight here has had repeatedly asked for help. And that has been an important part of his transformation. So let's watch this. And we're moving into the part now where we're going to be talking about mentoring, and how everywhere he goes on this trip, he's mentoring people. Here we go.
$180 even?
Done. Thanks to you boys, I'm going to get this rig back on the road. I've drove it all the way across Iowa, and I'm hoping it holds on until I get to Wisconsin. My brother lives there. I haven't seen him in 10 years. There's no one knows your life better than a brother that's near your age. He knows who you are and what you are better than anyone on earth. My brother and I said some unforgivable things the last time we met, but I'm trying to put that behind me. And this trip is a hard swallow of my pride. I just hope I'm not too late.
Again, a gorgeous performance. And he's talking specifically to these bickering twins. So let's see what's next. Okay. Michael Meade, one of the great mythologists and teachers of soul, says in Mythic tales, the elders act as bridges that help young people find their way in the world. They also serve to bridge meaningful traditions of the past with viable visions of the future trying to become conscious. So the past, meaning, and the future, hope, youth and elder. So mentoring, generativity versus stagnation. I always draw on Erik Erikson's work. I think it really holds up. And in midlife, this is what the crisis is are we going to stagnate? Or are we going to be generative? And generativity is very much rooted in mentoring, in passing on what we've learned, in keeping our creativity and our life force energy, our eros ignited, in part by that relationship to the youth who are hungry to be mentored. Mentoring involves storytelling. We're going to get a little piece here with Maud coming up, with Harold and Maud, where a mentor can be a trickster figure, a grandparent, as Hillman writes about in his book on aging. The shared gifts and the shadow. It's not just about sharing. Well, with youth and elder, it's about recognizing the gift in the youth that we share with them, and also recognizing the shadow material that comes with that. So they give and take from each other. The genius. This is the great mythic work that Michael Meade's been doing is to move from the hero myth to the genius myth. And the genius myth has to do with the ancient ideas that we're all born with a unique sense of genius. And the work is to remember that along the way. And this I'm connecting to Erickson's work on integrity versus despair. If we don't come into harmony with our genius, if we don't own it, I can't tell you how many people in my practice over the years, men and women both, could not tolerate the process of ownership of their genius. And, there's a lot of religious overlay in there. There's a lot of Puritan overlay in there. But integrity is about living as fully in our eccentricity, into our character, into our calling back everything that's been lost. But I think it has a lot to do with claiming our genius and living it. The creativity in the genie in the bottle, genius and genie. Fate and destiny, how we work with our fate becomes our destiny. Eccentricity is the first sign of genius, says Clarissa Pinkola Estes. The gift and the wound come together, and claiming those gifts. Yeah, with every gift, the gift is always right next door to the wound. So we've got to know that, we've got to pass that on. Shadow, the unlived life comes to call in all of these, in all the great elder stories. The unlived life comes to call. As Jung said, we've got to become our opposite, and that's going to show up often in the road trips. It's the person we're in the car with. Think of the holdovers, the most recent great expression of the road trip, where we got the two opposites in the vessel with the lid turned on, and they transform each other. Rememberment, that comes up again and again, to remember the dismembered parts. To become conscious of our shadow. We all know here, you don't cure it, you don't get rid of it, you don't overcome it, that great American fantasy. We learn to carry it with consciousness. And I always feel like a really important sign of that is when we have a sense of humor about it. So befriend versus overcome. Okay, let's see what's next here. Okay, let's hear from one of the great mentors that have been, to me, this is the movie of the year from last year, Women Talking, and Marion Woodman from The Crown of Age. Young girls in our society are not initiated by older women into womanhood with the crone's dignity and power. Without the crone, the task of belonging to oneself, of being a whole person, is virtually impossible. So in Women Talking, we have this great conceit, beautifully written, won Best Screenplay of the Year, Best Adapted Screenplay. Storytelling is one of the four universal healing salves. Angeles Arian put this together. Storytelling, singing, dancing, and sitting in silence. And storytelling is one of the great practices of mentoring. We've got encouragement and inspiration, and we've got vulnerability as leadership. I think it's in this clip. I'm pretty sure it is, that at the very end of the clip, watch how the focus comes off this brilliant actress and the focus shifts to the two youngest people in the room because she's speaking to them. She's teaching them. So let's watch this.
I want to tell another story about Ruth and Cheryl. I was always frightened of the northern road out of the colony. There's so many gullies on either side of the road. The buggy used to lurch side to side. Ruth and Cheryl were simply following my commands of the reins, but they were jerky and frenetic, and it was dangerous. It was only when I learned to focus my gaze far down ahead of me and not on the road immediately in front of Ruth and Cheryl that I started to feel safe. Leaving will give us the more far-seeing perspective we need to forgive. Which is to love properly and keep the peace according to our faith. Therefore, our leaving wouldn't be an act of cowardice or abandonment. It wouldn't be because we were excommunicated or exiled. It would be a supreme act of faith, a step towards love and forgiveness. Leaving is how we demonstrate our faith. We are leaving because our faith is stronger than the rules, bigger than our life.
Oh, that is never going to fail to move me. Oh, I love how it's edited so that when the little baby is crawling, the words, it's a step toward, are matched with the baby making steps. I love that. It's called a rack focus, where the focus in the camera moves from her to them. I love the idea that leaving will give them a safe place from which they can begin to forgive. It's just so full of wisdom, so beautifully, beautifully wrought. Okay, another mentor story, another healing story, another beautiful film by Barry Jenkins. Angeles Arian would say, when we are witnessed, we can never go back. And what we witness, we are changed by. You know, the resiliency studies that say that what makes a difference, it sure did for me, I'm sure it did for many of you, when we grow up with trauma, with violence. What makes the difference is someone who saw us, someone who tended to our genius, someone who mentored us, who showed us love. So the seeds of resilience, the beautiful, beautiful line, I got you, which is a form of trust fall in the water. The elder who knows the troubles this child is going to have, recognizes the genius and knows the troubles that come with it, and mentors and encourages the genius as well. Here we go. From Moonlight.
Let your head rest in my hand. Relax. I got you, I promise. I'm not gonna let you go. Hey man, I got you. There you go. 10 seconds. And that right there, you're in the middle of the world, man. That's good. Who like that? I got chicken. More athletic. There you go. Yeah. I think you're ready. Think we got a swimmer. You wanna try? You ready to swim? Go. Yeah, man. Yeah. Let me tell you something, man. There are black people everywhere. Remember that, okay? No place you can go in the world ain't got no black people. We was the first on this planet. I've been here a long time. And I'm from Cuba. A lot of black folks in Cuba. You wouldn't know that from being here, though. I was a wild little shorty, man. Just like you. Running around with no shoes on, when the moon was out. This one time, I run by this old lady. I was running, hollering, cutting a fool, boy. This old lady, she stopped me. She said, running around, catching a boy that light. In moonlight, black boys look blue. You blue. That's why I gonna call you. Blue.
Say your name, Blue.
Nah.
At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
I was a wild little shorty just like you. Okay, I'm going to move to this one. Harold and Maude. This is the introduction of Maude. And she is a trickster figure. She's grandmother trickster. She sees his genius. She shares the same genius. They're both artists. They're both performers. They're performance artists. And she mentors him and she helps him to transform from being stuck in his initiatory process of becoming an adult man. She helps him cross over. So I think of this film as a fairy tale. The sneeze is what introduces her, and listen to the words that are said on the clip right before she sneezes. Notice the apple referencing Eve. Notice everything that's going on with the voiceover and what's happening with her behavior. She's modeling wildness and she's modeling breaking the rules to wake the dead. And Clarissa Pinkola Estes says, eccentricity is the first sign of giftedness. Here we go.
Who shall ascend the mountain of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? The innocent of hands and the pure of heart, who has not turned his mind to vanity, nor sworn deceitfully to his neighbor. He shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and a reward from God his Savior. This is the generation of those who seek you.
I wish I knew what makes me me, what makes you you.
Okay. So the trickster comes and helps him transform by breaking the rules and helps him become what he's meant to be. Okay. Where are we? Okay, let's go ahead and look. This is maybe my favorite clip in the movie. She is a wounded healer. This is where we first get the very subtle hint that she survived Auschwitz, one of the death camps, and how she demonstrates, how she models holding life and death together in paradox, how she brings song, story, and dance to his life, the healing salves, how she brings heart and meaning. She brings him to life, and just in time for her to let go of her life. Everybody gets older, says Michael Meade, but not everyone gets wiser. The elders are those who become wiser from their own failures, their own woundings, and their own awakenings. She is an artist, a storyteller, a mentor, a wounded healer, and a trickster. And as she tells this story, she brings forth the wounded healer in Harold as well. Here we go.
Oh, that's my umbrella. That's just a relic. I found it when I was packing to come to America. It used to be my defense on picket lines and rallies and political meetings, being dragged off by the police and attacked by thugs of the opposition.
What were you fighting for?
Oh, big issues. Liberty, rights, justice. Kings died, kingdoms fell. I don't regret the kingdoms. What sense in borders and nations and patriotism? But I miss the kings. When I was a little girl, I was taken to the palace in Vienna to a garden party. I can still see the sun shining, the parasols, the flashing uniforms of the young officers. I thought then that I would marry a soldier. Later on, Frederic would chide me about it. He was so serious. The doctor at the university and in the government. But that was all before.
So, you don't use the umbrella anymore? No more revolts?
Oh, yes. Oh, every day. But I don't need a defense anymore. I embrace. Still fighting for the big issues, but now in my small, individual way. Shall we have a song?
Shall we have a song? Look at how terrified he is. And the white makeup on his face to underscore the fact that he's walking the walk of the living dead. She's going to bring him to life by teaching him how to be eccentric and wild, and also showing him how to hold the trauma of the past with life, living life fully. Just so beautiful. And so what a gift to see the depth of her performance there. We don't often get to see that or remember that about Ruth Gordon. Just brilliant. Okay, here we go. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, said Jung. It's never too late. I believe, and I've seen and heard about deathbed transformations. Hearts can open at any time. We can move into integrity to become who we truly are at any time. Reclaiming the lost self, the shadow work that comes with that, and ego and soul as teammates. You know, we aren't supposed to get rid of the ego. We aren't supposed to overcome it. We're supposed to refine it so that it can work on the same team as the soul. So let's take a look at this one.
My parents got married in 1955. He was a museum director and she fixed up old houses. They had a child and they stayed married for 44 years until she died in their bed after 4 months of cancer and eating French toast for every meal and watching the Teletubbies every day and confusing white straws for her cigarettes and skipping back and forth through time inside her head. 6 months later, my father told me he was gay. He had just turned 75.
I'm gay.
I always remember him wearing a purple sweater when he told me this, but actually he wore a robe.
I'm gay. I'm gay. I loved your mother, but now I want to explore this side. I don't want to be just theoretically gay. I want to do something about it. I want to do something about it. I want to do something about it.
He changed all his clothes. He got a boyfriend, Andy, a physical trainer who was also studying for his professional pyrotechnic license.
Since I came out to my father, he never speaks to me. That's why I've been always attracted to older men.
He found an out gay priest to guide him spiritually. He saw a therapist for the first time. He joined the Prime Timers, Movie Night, Los Angeles Pride. And then 4 years after he came out, he died in this room.
And what the film goes on to show us is that he died a good death. He was surrounded by people he loved. He was being who he truly was and got a chance to be in full integrity and live as fully as possible. So it's a really, really, that part of the film, the film itself isn't great, but it's great when we're in the part that's about Christopher Plummer's story. So it's worth seeing for that alone. And I love how he plays it when Andy, his younger lover, is saying, I get involved with older men because my dad won't talk to me. And Christopher Plummer, the guy he plays, he just laughs about it. That's just such a great take on that moment. So really, really well done. Great little montage there. And I can't remember exactly where that comes in the film. It might have been at the very beginning. It certainly feels like it could be. Okay. A little bit here from another movie that's going to be in my series on the Wise Elders that starts on May 9th, Babette's Feast. This is a film about how white hair does not make an elder, the African proverb. This whole community is so locked into Protestant religious strictures that it has totally split body and spirit. And along comes this beautiful parable, this fable about a genius, a great artist who offers her gifts to this community and owns her genius. It's the feminine unifying spirit and soul. It's the feast as a sensual sacrament. We see through the feast how these people begin to soften, that split begins to soften, even though they're not conscious of it. There's a mind-body split that meets pleasure and loves it. Embodiment as devotion is centered in this film, and bypassing ideology with somatic experience. So let's watch this one.
Stjernerne er kommet nærmere. Måske kommer de nærmere hver nat. Måske får vi slet ikke sne i år.
Halleluja.
Babette. Det var en meget god middag. De synes virkelig alle sammen, at det var en god middag.
Jeg var engang køkkenchef på Café Anglais.
Vi vil alle sammen huske denne aften, når du rejste tilbage til Paris.
Jeg rejser ikke til Paris.
Rejser du ikke til Paris?
Jeg har ikke noget at vende tilbage til. Alle er de borte. Og jeg har ikke en penge.
Ingen penge? Jo, men det er 10.000 franc.
Giver du det?
10.000 franc?
En middag del 12 au Café Anglais kostede 10.000 franc.
Kære Babette, du skulle da ikke have givet alt, hvad du ejede ud for vores skyld.
Det var ikke alene for deres skyld.
Så bliver du altså fattig nu hele dit liv.
En kunstner er aldrig fattig.
A great artist is never poor. Just the way that she embodies her genius, the way she stands behind it, the way she models sacrifice to make sacred in a way that evokes a metanoia in this community, a transformation, a turning of some sort. The guy saying hallelujah is drunk, drunk with his embodied experience of pleasure. So one of the great films about wise elderhood. Okay. Mary Oliver from When Death Comes. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. So the sacred marriage is a part of elderhood. Sometimes it's literal. Many of you, I'm in the community here, have been married many, many years, and you know the alchemical vessel that marriage is. When the lid is put on it, the retort, when you can't escape, when you stay in the marriage, when you stay in the crucible, then change occurs. The alchemical tension, the union of opposites, staying in the vessel, awakening to the shadow, and the paradox as practice that comes with that. Ancestral connection. I'm deeply, deeply called to this, very interested in it. I love when it shows up in films. I love when it shows up in waking life. The ancestors as our invisible elders. In America is really the only country in the world that doesn't have daily practices to honor the elders, ritual altars in stores, in homes, at the roadsides, all around the world. Rituals, altars, and gratitude. The thing we aren't good at in this culture is asking for help, and it's a primary element of invoking the ancestors and actually helping to tend to the deep loneliness in American culture. And the loneliness that's really an epidemic right now is asking for help and being in that relationship so that we're never fully alone. And healing generational trauma, of course, a core aspect throughout time of having a living relationship to the dead, the healthy dead, the well dead. Facing death itself is a really important part of these pilgrimage stories, of these of these elder stories. Making honorable closure. Angela Sarian would say that honorable closure is sharing what we appreciate, what has challenged us, and what has impacted us about the relationship. Letting go, the practice of letting go. If we haven't begun to master this, at this age, we're going to be in trouble. Befriending mystery is one of the permutations of that. A few honest words, at a deathbed, if we're privileged, if there's a willingness to be in the conversation, a few honest words, asking for and granting forgiveness, and dreams and visitations. So important. Something, again, our culture is not tuned into is how the ancestors come into the dreams, visitors come into the dreams to help us prepare for death, to help us cross over. Okay. Let's... Oops. I'm going to skip that one and go here. And I just have to show this. This is from Elizabeth I. It was a two-part series on HBO. It's brilliant, just brilliant. Came out in 2005, I think. We are crowned twice in this lifetime, says Marion Woodman. The first crowning comes at birth, but what of the second crowning, which comes only after a lifetime of experience? This is the crown of age, a symbol of the culmination of our inner and outer development as human beings. Now, I typically only show regular human beings when I'm teaching about the elder, but I had to show this one because it's such a fascinating part of the narrative. I don't think this is literally based on historical fact, but what's come at this point in the story is that she has said to have not eaten in 3 weeks, and she's been standing up for 15 hours. So we've got the crone as virgin, the old idea that a virgin is a woman unto herself, full of herself, into herself, holding paradox. Again, she's in her power as she's about to die, but also the paradox that goes through the whole story, the story of Elizabeth I, is how she's constantly wrestling with duty and heart, the paradox, the tension between her heart and her duty. And the sacred marriage within, I think she's a great example of this, at least this fictional example. And the warrior pose, the standing for so long. So let me I might move it a little bit forward.
Mom,
Let's see if I can do that.
you must. Must.
Let me try doing it this way. Let it move forward a bit. Oops. Uh-oh. No, that was not a good plan. Okay. Oh, that's not it. We'll get back to it. Bear with me. Okay. Now I have to reshare it. Oh, I guess it was already there. Let's get rid of that one. Oops. Okay. I need to share my screen again. There's certain things that don't work in this workaround. Okay. Oops. There we go. All right. I'm tempted to just skip this one because I'm going to skip this one. But I'm going to recommend that you watch it. You find it on HBO. Because I have a couple others I want to show and leave us plenty of time to share. Okay. All right. Daughters of the Dust, a groundbreaking film by a woman of color in 1981. In old wisdom traditions, elders act as a living bridge between the visible, measurable world and the mostly unseen realms of spirit and soul while still in touch with the troubles of daily life. The elders could be seen to have one foot firmly on the ground of survival and the other in the realm of great imagination. This audio is hard to hear, but let's see how it goes. It's because it was done on site and you can hear the ocean in the background. But pay attention to the actors. As the lead actor here, Coralie Day, playing Nana, how it just talks about them coming over in chains, and just notice how the actors, that these human beings are feeling the history of generational trauma. So rituals of remembrance, transition, and connection. She's mentoring, she's teaching them ritual, and she's telling them about their history. Here we go.
When I was a child, my mother cut this from her hair before she was sold away from me. Now, I add on my own hair. There must be a bond, a connection between those that go north, those that remain, between us that are here and us that are across the sea. A connection. We are as two people in one body. The last of the old, the first of the new. We will always live this double life, because we from the sea. We came here in chains. And we must survive. We must survive. The salt water she in the blood.
Just beautiful. Just beautiful. A very poetic film. The film is more of a poem than a narrative, and historical. Okay. This is one of my very favorites. If you don't know the television show Reservation Dogs, please seek it out on Hulu FX. It's only had 3 seasons. It was groundbreaking. Everyone in front of the camera and behind the camera were Native people. That's the first time in history it's ever happened. And it made for incredible paradox of really deep expression, exploration of trauma, generational trauma, suicide, but also humor, the way Native people deal with some of that, the ways that they've had to survive. What is broken in this world can only be healed by the other world, Irish proverb I love, and what is broken in the other world can only be healed by this world. There has to be a give and take to heal. Healing comes when the individual remembers his or her identity, their calling, the purpose and calling chosen in the world of ancestral wisdom, and reconnects with that world of spirit. So we have a girl here. First, we have Lily Gladstone before everybody knew who she was. She's in prison. We never know why. And she's across from one of our favorite characters, one of the reservation dogs, the teenagers trying to get initiated. The teenager's beginning to recognize her gift as a medicine person, and she's come to this medicine person and watch what unfolds. And my sense is that everyone who shows up in this scene behind this teenager is themselves a Native person that works in the world as a healer. Here we go.
Well, put your hands up on the table, like we just did. Close your eyes. We're gonna have a little prayer. I need your help.
What?
Not you. Keep your eyes shut.
We have to ask for help.
Happens, okay? Just focus on the dark. Take long, slow breaths. Good. Just listen to your breathing for a second. Remember the stories I told you when you were growing up about the people we come from. Generations of medicine people. Caretakers. These are the ones who held us together as we arrived from our homelands. The healers who carried us and buried us as we marched. Men and women whose songs led us through the dark. They're watching you, my girl. You don't need me. You have them. This is the power we carry. When you really pray, they're all around you. All the time.
Oh, shit.
Takes focus, though. Intent. Open your eyes.
Holy fuck. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck.
Okay, wow. The weight, bearing the weight of our gifts. This is one reason people don't step into their gifts. This is one reason people don't claim their genius, as bearing the weight, especially if the calling, if the genius is to be a healer. And imagine being that crew of both the crew and the actors playing that scene. Imagine the power those actresses were feeling, the teenager feeling real feelings about what's happening in the scene, and Lily Gladstone so beautifully carrying the gravitas that she does so gorgeously. Okay, let's just Fellini. Talking about dreams is like talking about movies, since the cinema uses the language of dreams. It's a language made of image, and in the real cinema, every object and every light means something, as in a dream. Okay, this is the final moment in No Country for Old Men. Let's listen to the dream he tells and listen for the hope in this dream. After incredible darkness and evil, the encounter with evil, and then this hopeful dream at the very end of the film.
How'd you sleep?
I don't know. Had dreams.
Well, you got time for them now. Anything interesting?
There always is to the party concerned.
And Tom, I'll be polite.
All right, then. Two of them. Both had my father in them. It's peculiar. I'm older now than he ever was by 20 years. So, in a sense, he's the younger man. Anyway, the first one I don't remember too well, but it was about meeting him in town somewhere. He gave me some money. I think I lost it. The second one, it was like we was both back in the older times. And I was a horseback, going through the mountains of a night, going through this pass in the mountains. It was cold, and there was snow on the ground. He rode past me and kept on going, never said nothing going by, just rode on past. And he had his blanket wrapped around him and his head down. When he rode past, I seen he was carrying fire in a horn, the way people used to do, and I could see the horn from the light inside of it, about the color of the moon. And in the dream, I knew that he was going on ahead. And he's fixing to make a fire somewhere out there in all that dark and all that cold. And I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. And then I woke up.
That is where that film ends. The light is the color of the moon. What an incredible image that is. Mountains of the night. The constant fire, the fire that can't be extinguished of the human spirit. I'm going to bypass this one, but I will just tell you that this also is the final dream in this film, Wild Strawberries. And in this film, Final Dream, he also meets up with the ancestors, waiting in the light. They're on a sunny shore, beckoning for him to call. So the ancestors waiting with the light, beckoning for us to come. This is a very common image, both in dreams and in films. And then we'll just end here so we can come back and hear from you all. Mary Oliver, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. So, I'm going to invite you all to share from your depths what has touched you, what has moved you. I love to start with feelings because they disappear quickly. What did you love? What grabbed you? What's going to stay with you? What lit up for you? So I guess I turn it over to you now, Andrew, to let me know who's raising their hands, or do you want me to call on people?
If you're comfortable doing that, that's fine. Let's see where we go.
Okay. So let's see, has anybody got their hand up? Sometimes I can't see it very well. But okay, I do see that Judith has her hand up. So let's start with you, Judith. Go
Hi
ahead.
there. Yeah, I'm so great. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much with your presentation. It really moved me. What moved me actually to tears was Reservation Dogs. I absolutely adored that program. It was amazing. And that scene with Lily Gladstone and Billy Jack with the ancestors, the potency and the power of, I loved how you framed it of stepping into, bearing the weight of our gifts. And I think that's such a human experience of knowing what you have to let go of in order to embrace the potentiality of who you're meant to be, and how that is so reflected in that moment when Billy Jack starts weeping and knows who Billy Jack is the teenager or the younger person of what she has to do. Thank you so much for bringing that in. It's such a potent. It's so potent to watch with the ancestors then touching her shoulders. I just am so moved by that. So thank you.
Oh, I love having you in person.
I know.
The story I tell myself is that all of those non-actors that were playing the ancestors, that they all were healers, that they hired medicine people to play that. And I just can only imagine how charged the field was in that room with the actresses. I mean, just there's so many levels of, right. It was my favorite series of the year, well, for many years. It's just brilliant. So
it is.
And Willie Jack is my favorite character in that series. And you would never guess from her personality that she's a medicine woman. So that's part of what's wonderful about it. So
yeah.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you.
Thank you.
It moves me to tears too. Okay, that looks to me like Christine. Let's hear from you, Christine. Oh, you have to unmute.
You're muted.
Yeah, there were so many strong moments that caught my attention and my feelings. And I'm also going to reference the scene that Judith mentioned and the concept of the other world, this world and the other world. And I guess from the film clip where the Black woman was surrounded, Daughters of the Dust, really struck in that one where how she was saying she put the hair together.
Yeah.
The power of, the symbolic power of hair, for one thing. And then she put them together, and it was, I thought she was saying the two are one. Just, it's kind of familiar to me from Christian, religiosity, that concept of the two are become one. But I felt the power of her words in that moment. And I thought, wow, to have that kind of faith when you're in that kind of oppression, how absolutely vital it would be to hold those ancestors as in the scene with the Native American, where you are there with them. They're always there with you.
Yes. Yes. And they want
related for me.
Well, and they want us to ask them for help. I've heard many of my own teachers say they're standing around saying, why aren't they giving us some work? Give us some work to do. And so, Yes, it's so powerful, and it's so, I feel like there are moments in our culture that are opening up to this ancient universal way of seeing the world and the other world. I wrote down her dialogue because it was hard to hear. When I was a child, my mother cut this off her hair when she was sold away from me.
Oh.
Now I'm adding my own hair. There must be a bond, a connection between those going to go north, and also in the story, they're those that are becoming Christian. So she's holding that paradox, and she's actually honoring it. There's another part in the story where she takes the Bible, the Holy Bible, and she puts the medicine bundle that we're seeing her make on top of the Bible and winds them together. So this is incredible modeling. And yeah, just that she's a wonderful character, beautifully played, very, very moving. And it's true. We want the elders to teach us the ancient ways and to teach us how to connect.
And to be there when we cross over.
And to be there when we cross over to help us across. It's so interesting to hear the dreams of people and to hear about their visions, what we call hallucinations, when the veil is so thin when people are dying. I find that so exciting and fascinating.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making this happen. Let's hear from you, Judy.
Yes, I would have spoken about reservation dogs too. But I also, in the David Lynch, in the clip, the power of what movies can do, because the actor, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, the older man, and he's looking, I mean, I take your word for it, and it shows the clip. He's looking at these two twins, but it doesn't. The camera isn't back. It shifts from him looking, and I felt him looking at me. That's my point, because it's like eye to eye. There you are, and you're speaking to me, because and before it's too late, and it's like I felt like shot through the heart before it's too late.
That's right, before it's too late. Yeah.
And the twins are silent. You know, they have this, like, I think especially because they didn't speak. You know, I wasn't sort of distracted by them. And they're kind of like in a trance by his words. And I felt the same thing. Before it's too late. Talk about a wake-up call. And
Talk
that's
about a wake-up call.
It's a film, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because, you know, in our culture that we say, you know, we're or actually you introduced in the beginning, you know, we're short. There's a dearth of elders, but by picking out elders that you have done in this and in your series, they can become elders, you know, for us. And that's what I felt in that moment from him, that actor.
Yes. Thank you for saying it that way. You know, on my website, the page that talks about me, I have a whole piece about how movies were my mentors. Movies were my teachers. You know, they saved me. They saved my life. And so, you know, all over the world, people are learning about things through film. And you're right, it's an extraordinary film. G-rated, David Lynch, Disney, amazing, based on a true story. And it's Richard Farnsworth, who was nominated and deserved to win, but didn't. But yeah, his performance is so deep. I think he may have had cancer. He died not long after this film was released. Actually, no, he lived long enough to get through the Academy Awards, but then he died not long after. So we bless him. Yeah, I agree. Elders, ancestors, it's not just family members. It's teachers that have been important. It's literary figures. It's movie people. It's people from our dreams. They're there to help us. Yeah. Thank you so much, Judy. Who else might want to share? I see another. Is that Lauren? Lauren, please unmute.
Oh, Yes, I'm unmuted. So I was really struck by Come Back Little Sheba. And I saw that movie. So, this isn't my first rodeo either. And I saw that movie as a very young woman, and I was furious with the main character. Why is she doing this? Why isn't she getting hold of this? Why? I just remember, and when you started to show it, I thought, why are we seeing this? And then I melted inside for the depth of the performance. And of course, the trope of being in bed with a partner that isn't giving her the attention that she wants, but he's not really bad either. He's not a bad guy. He's just not that interested, but he's not bad. So you can't divide it. It makes it so much more complicated. And yet she's longing and she knows what she's doing and she can't help herself. And the depth of that feeling, I understand it so much more. As a woman, she's having that feeling, whatever the feeling might be, she's overcome by it. And so thank you so much for bringing that back to my attention. Because as I said, I remember disliking that film and being annoyed with my mother. This is what I was looking for. I was annoyed with my mother because she liked that performance. And I thought, why can't she stand up for herself?
Yeah, no, I suspect our mothers would. This is by William Inge. It's from a play by William Inge, who did melodrama. I suspect a lot of our mothers really empathized with her because she's a woman with no purpose. She's a housewife. That's it. And that was the era. And there's another clip that I had to not show because of time, but it's the ending dream of the film. After this big ordeal they go through related to alcoholism and relapse, I'd never seen a movie before where they go to a 12-step meeting, in the movie in 1952. So, but the ending dream is after the big ordeal, and he has a relapse and gets sober again. They come back together, and she said, "I had another dream about little Sheba," and then she says this whole thing about athletics and her father, and then her husband, Doc, she calls him. He throws a javelin up into the air, and it never comes down, which is a really interesting image.
Mm-hmm.
And then little Sheba is dead in the dream. Little Sheba is dead, and she's really sad about it. But in the dream, she tells, the husband is saying, "We've got to go on. We can't stay here. We've got to go on." And she begins to make peace with that loss and everything that Sheba represents. It's a really beautiful second dream. So, and you can find it by just going to YouTube and Googling Little Sheba. You'll get a bunch of clips.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And I agree. I loved it as a kid, but I can see why you'd hate it because she's that kind of 1950s woman that just, and because of that, she's really flighty and, kind of histrionic, what we might call histrionic.
Of course, and alcohol plays in that, it changes everything. And I want to add, and thanks for giving me this time. So I'm recently in a position where I'm with a lot of younger women in a very athletic thing. I teach this thing anyway, and there's 30 and there's even 40 or 50-year-old women that are sort of flock around me. And I'm only beginning to understand that they want something from me and they want to give and take something. And I've never been in that position before. So I'm very interested in how to be an elder and how I can give them. One 24-year-old woman came up to me and said, we had to climb a mountain. And she said, I want to climb with you because I see myself in you. And I thought, oh my God, I'm liable to fall over and die. So I'll climb whether that'll be great. But I've got to look more deeply. It's an honor. It's an honor that I want to take on. So thank you for this.
Well, and it's coming to your doorstep, right? It's coming to the threshold. You're being called. It's a calling.
Yes.
Somebody says, "I want this from you." And it's such a sacred calling, and the world is hungry for it. And girls, young women are starving for it. There are a lot more men as mentors that have made it into the visible world. So yeah, it's a blessing.
Menopause, the women just going through menopause.
Yeah.
They don't know how to cope with it. We've already done that. So I made up some stuff. Some of it worked, but it's a very interesting position to be in. And thank you for helping me to open the doors inside of myself.
Yes, 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 yes. It's what's meant to be for you to grow at this stage in your journey. And what a mutual blessing it will be. Yeah. I'm always hungry to get some young people to come to my classes, and it's just not yet, but I'm always like trying to get them to come. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Lauren. Let's hear from Susan. And go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
I was so struck by all of the films I found powerful, but the montage of all of them together really consolidated and crystallized the idea of eldering in general in a way that I had never experienced before. So a lot of what I was seeing was familiar, but it was more intuitive. This really put an incredibly important frame on it for me. So I do appreciate that. And I really appreciated, I think, what you were just saying, how important the role of the elder is in this society. And it's for the wholeness and the health of an entire society. And yet I look at what we're doing to our elders.
Yeah. 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 I always think about the fairy tale rules, and in fairy tales, how we treat animals, how we treat children, how we treat the infirm, the poor, and the elders will determine how we do by the end of the tale. So I agree with you. I mean, this is, yeah. So this is another reason why the youth and the elders coming together is so important, so that the next generation can bring forward the good, true, and beautiful that our generation or the generations in power right now. Yeah, we live with that sadness, and we hope to make a difference. Thank you for that. Thank you. Great to have you. So glad these things are eldering. I love that term. Isn't that a great term? Eldering. I've played with elderhood. It seems kind of ordinary, and then eldership seems a little elevated. Eldering. I like that. So thank you, Susan. Okay, let's hear from Carol. And would you unmute yourself?
Well, I'm so glad to meet you and to feel your celebration of our age. I really have been guilty a little bit of being so proud of saying, I'm 80, I'm 80, I'm 80, I'm 80. I'm so proud of it. It is amazing. So, I mean, there's so many ways you help us celebrate, and I feel joined in the celebration. And I won't, but in the film itself, I just want to mention, besides the men, I was very, very moved to see Moonlight, the clip from Moonlight. I love that movie. It's one of my favorites. But what I love is the combination, of seeing, here we are, a Black man who is, I believe he was surviving by selling drugs.
Yep.
And, this situation, an external situation that's pretty deadly and poisonous in many ways. But the scene that you chose, and the scene in the moon of being this man rocking a young one in his arms in the water and teaching him to swim. And it's just archetypal forever.
Yes.
That image forever, about what's possible for a man, any man. It's in an odd way, it's eccentric because it seems to go against the culture they're in, the brutality, the role, him being in a selling drugs, and bringing his mother down. All these things are against him. And that happens in nature, in water. It's beyond, it's a message to me beyond. And it brings me again back to our ancient ways. And what's missing, I like the song and the dance and the storytelling that was mentioned in several, but the touch, the rocking, the holding, the cradling, to cradle an elder, the elder. I cradled an elder and she said, "You're the only one who's touched me."
Oh,
And the deprivation of touch when you're older, but that elder's ability to cradle the young boy and not sexualizing it. And then eventually, even it's not in the clip, but it was so wonderful. At the end, what stayed with him was the love
yeah.
would be passed on from one man to another. So the whole thing, it just makes me almost tremble. It's like that. It's so incredible. So thank you. But again, I want to really say about the touch deprivation and the ancient ways of healing, cradling, touching, being in water together, all these things. It's beautiful. And thank you for covering so much.
Thank you. It's too much, isn't it? That's why I have to do a whole series where we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Gosh, this group, it's such a privilege to teach to a group of elders who are doing the work. It's so exciting for me. And you're bringing in so many incredible images to put in this cauldron that we've created here that will stay with us. And as you all know, well, I think of movies as being, our response to movies as being psychodiagnostic. So notice what stays with you. Notice what dreams come. Notice what niggles at you. Notice what part of the film really grabbed you, because it's a thread. It's a thread to where you're working, where your edge is. And I love that. That's just why animals are so important, the touch deprivation. But the words he's saying when he's cradling is, "I got you, I got you, I got you." And it's like to me, it's like a trust fall.
Yeah. Ooh.
Trust the unknown. He's teaching how to trust a man, an older man.
Yeah.
And when I see images like that, I'm sure a lot of us did, the first thing we think is, "Oh God, I hope he's not going to get sexually abused." And he isn't. It's all love. So we need these stories. These are stories we need.
True.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Oh, let's hear from Edward. Go ahead.
Lower hand.
Hi, everybody. And Terry, thank you for your great enthusiasm and your love of the material, not just presenting it, embodying it and feeling it. So it's wonderful. I'm going to try to share in a different way.
Okay.
Very personal. I had COVID back in December, and since then I've had long COVID, and I've been isolated. And my wife is in Australia being a grandmother because our son and his family live over there. So I've been alone except for a cat to touch. That's the only touch I've had is our cat. I am an elder and a mentor, especially in the field of war trauma healing.
I know your work, and it moves me so deeply. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We need to be witnessed. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
In the last year or two, well, since the Ukraine war started, I have been mentoring some of the mental health, military mental health experts. They're not experts. The military mental health servants in Ukraine who don't know how to do war healing. So I've been working with them. And my book, Warriors Return, has been translated into Russian. And this year I've also been mentoring the Russian Jungian community, who also doesn't know how to do this because Russia's been at war for 1400 years and they've never stopped to heal the war trauma. So over there, since these wars have started, I've been called to be a mentor and an elder to them.
Mm.
Hang on. My grandmother was a Russian Jew who left because of the pogroms. My grandfather was a Polish Jew who left because of the pogroms. During my COVID illness, I do take, and we all should take, our breakdowns as portals to the sacred and opportunities for breakthrough. So I have been, and of course our medical and mainstream mental health systems don't do that.
No.
Heal the symptom and get back into the ordinary. And that doesn't work. And all of your lessons tonight remind us that doesn't work. We have to be in the sacred and work for the transformation. So I'm pretty good tonight. And my friends out there, hello, I'm getting better. Some people are worried about, thank you. But I wasn't. And I really couldn't do anything except watch movies. I couldn't even read. Working with these groups now, I said, this is an opportunity for me to incubate myself and give myself an intensive study session in Russian and Ukrainian and Polish history and culture and spirituality. So I've watched over 30 movies of Russian movies and Ukrainian, and mostly Russian, but also Ukrainian and Polish and Jewish, and of course they all overlap. I can't even express the extraordinary transformation that's happening for me and the synchronicities that are happening. A long lost cousin, well, I didn't even know him growing up, but a cousin showed up who is the only relative I have through my grandmother's line. And we shared the ancestral research that we've done. And now I know when my grandmother came and the village she came from. When we were growing up, and whenever I asked her, she would turn her head and spit on the ground and say, Russia, who wants to remember? What she survived was horrible. And that was my last memories of her, were that pain. My closest Ukrainian colleague, it turns out that he grew up next door to the village where my grandfather grew up. And my closest Russian colleague has helped me find my grandmother's village. And Friday, I'm beginning consultation with a woman from Belarus who was right next door to my grandmother's village, because that was part of Russia before. And my ancestors are coming to me in dreams and in visions.
Yes,
And I'm seeing my grandmother was in so much pain. She's smiling.
Yes,
now.
yes.
She's thanking me.
Yes.
And she's saying all of this work heals them and heals us and heals the future.
Yes.
And actually, we're getting there. I'm getting there to bring the Russian and the Ukrainian war healers together to realize that we're all in this together, and it's the trauma that is universal, and the trauma that can unite us. And also, I've never, I grew up as a New York and a Long Island Jew, and it was not very spiritual. I've never felt so Jewish in my life as I feel now, with all of this coming back to life in me.
Yeah. Oh, Ed.
Where that just before your program tonight, I did a really serious, beautiful Friday evening Shabbat service. It's a ceremony for what's happening for me and my ancestors and my colleagues, and for our sharing tonight. So reconnection, reunification, reclaiming of the lost parts of self and world. I testify to it, and I'm really grateful to the 30 movies and to movie as a medium for how it's enabled me to incubate. So
Oh,
thank you.
oh, what what a wealth! What a wealth you have shared with us. Vulnerability as a superpower. What a crucible, what a journey. Movies as medicine are one of my favorite things to think about, to talk about, to reflect on, to pass on. What an assignment you set for yourself to stick with those culture movies, which make magnificent movies. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. And blessings, blessings on your continued healing. What an elder, what a mentor. From the heart, from the heart. There's a healer for you. There's a wounded healer for you. Okay.
I don't want to, other people need time to do this work for all these decades and to continue and to keep putting myself in the fields of pain and suffering. I created for myself the mantra to walk through hell with my heart wide open.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's wow, let's just all hold this. What a beautiful group of healers we have here holding this all. Let's hear from you, Stephanie. And we might have time for one more after Stephanie.
Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
This is awesome. So for me, the two things that really stuck out was the women talking clip when she said our faith is stronger than our rules, and then also the reservation dogs clip. So because for me, I struggled with my religious beliefs. Like back in college, I was raised Catholic, and I get the whole stereotype that you go into college, you start questioning things. Like I really started questioning my religious beliefs, to the point I was having like anxiety attacks over it. So I went through this whole like transformation period where, not to freak anybody out, but I actually am now a practicing medium. Talking to the other side with me and my mom both do it, but like, yeah, just like that whole, like, I see like the other side as like our elders, like they're like just sending all the healing, and then like, you know, it's just like so amazing. And then like also for me, I work with the elderly, like I work with memory impaired dementia residents, so I just see like, you know, like all these transformations going into dealing with death and stuff like that. And then like just the whole thing of like just kind of like that whole connection between like the young and like the elderly, like just like I just see like all the time like people just like try to like push them aside, and like, or like I see families just like leave them there. It's just like it's so heartbreaking to see. It's like, oh, like it's just, it breaks my heart. It's like, you know, you learn so much from them, and like they're so awesome to talk to. Like it's just great. Like, so I just that.
I love that we have a youngster amongst us. What a great thing to have. I want to say that I honor the gift you've been given of being a bridge between the worlds.
Thank you.
A medium as a bridge.
I'm like, it's like so scared to tell people, because I'm like, my mom and I were like, I don't know if you tell people, because I mean, you don't know if people are going to be open to it, but I mean,
that's going to be part of your learning, is to use your intuition to know what fields will receive that and which to keep it to yourself. That's going to be an important of carrying your gift. You know, there's, you know, there's wonderful scholarship having been done about music with Alzheimer's patients. I want to see some scholarship about movies. When my father was late in his Alzheimer's, I was at his house and turned off the stupid CNN that his wife insisted on keeping on, like it was just constant. And I turned on the Turner Classic Movies, and King Kong came on. And my dad was late in his Alzheimer's, and he sat up in bed and said, in this really kind of funny, like wry voice, he said, King Kong. And I thought, okay, there's just like music hits something deep in the memory, so do movies. And so the movies we go to, like the movies that Ed went to for his healing. But thank you for your work and for your caring. And I think let's hear from one more person, and if you can keep it brief so that we can really honor people's time commitment, let's hear from you, Erica.
Thank you, Terry. This has been wonderful.
Good.
I just came back from India where I was teaching Jung. I'm a Jungian analyst, and I was training people to be Jungian analysts. And there's such a interest in India on Jung. But what really, the culture, the fabric, the flow, the color, the humanity just really brought me inside myself in a way. But what was really striking to me was I had people taking me to temples, and I went to a number of Kali temples, and I grew up in Christianity, which I could never buy. But to be in a temple where the feminine is honored and worshipped was just profound for me. Feminine, which I've been researching and working with my whole life. It was just a breath of fresh air.
Gosh. Yeah. You know, all of Robert, oh gosh. He, she, we, Robert, what's his last name?
Johnson. Robert Johnson.
You know, how beloved India was to him, and how it was all about the feminine and all about the feeling function. And what a wild and chaotic beauty to be among. So thank you for bringing back and giving to. And Monsoon Wedding is one of my clips I didn't have. I had to cut down so much today, but Monsoon Wedding, because in that one we have the elder as protector, an elder who comes in and says, no, this cannot continue. So beautiful, beautiful. Okay, well, kids, ladies, gents, elders, everything in between. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. This is what I love. This is my passion. This is what I'm here to do. And I love doing it with people who are already working with depth. It's just such a privilege. So I hope that some of you will join my email list or go to my website to join us for the free salon on Thursday on the wonderful story of Henry Sugar. And then maybe consider in May joining for the ongoing series about the wise elder in film. So that's it for me. I'll turn it over to you, my dear.
Thank you so much, Terry. This is a very special evening. And I really want to thank you for, I know you've edited this program down so it was shorter. I know how challenging that is. In order to give us time to talk. And that's really, so meaningful for our audience.
That's the hardest part of my job is timekeeping. Yeah. And it was the thing to do, because look at the incredible wisdom and depth that we all are going to take away. Thank you, Christine. Thank you all.